Hey there YouTubes, Stuart here. How are you doing? Great. Me too, thanks for asking. I had been prototyping a couple of plant stand designs when I accidentally designed one that looked more like a side table. I thought I'd give the old side table game a go, as well as trying out a half-lap dovetail joint that I'd seen a couple of them YouTubers cut on their own CNCs. If they can do it, you know. After a couple of test cuts in maple, I found I got the best results if I slowed my cut down to 60 inches per minute and used a climb cut. I settled on a teeny tiny minus 0.005 inch offset only on the stretchers to give a snug fit in the dovetails. There was no offset used on the uprights. Since I'm using a 1/4 inch compression bit, my depth of cut is 1/8 of an inch to hit the downcut part of the spiral on my first pass. I still got a few fuzzy edges, but they came off at the mere sight of some sandpaper. I had a few pieces break free during my test and I didn't want to lose any more material here, so I used lots of tape and glue as well as tabs to make sure the material didn't move around. I think I'll use some fancy 3D tabs next time to avoid the little burn lines I got on this prototype. To minimise material waste, I sized the components to let me cut 2 parts in each board. These maple boards are roughly 4 3/4 inches deep by 22 inches long, and they were 0.8 inches thick after I'd flattened them. Wider boards would obviously let me cut more parts at once, but this is what I have. If I get adventurous on the next incarnation, I may lay out all 3 boards on the bed together and have the McGill & Sons robot cut them all at once. But for now, baby steps. As nice as the maple boards are, I thought it would be nice to add some visual interest to the top of the table. So I jammed some walnut strips into the centre of the top boards and let them dry overnight. I used that time to have a dry fit of the table parts and made sure the stretchers came together neatly and the half-lap joinery was hidden. Luckily, everything came together as intended. With the tabletop nice and dry, I was able to do the last cuts on the CNC. With the top of the table facing downwards, I cut 4 pockets on the underside that the uprights would slot into. These help square up the legs and give the table a lot of stability. Finally, I used a profile toolpath to cut out the final shape of the tabletop. I used as much of the material as I could to give a nice sized tabletop. With all the parts now cut, it was time to put it all together. I put a tiny bit of glue into each upright's pocket and pushed the stretcher plug into the uprights. It did need a little bit of persuasion to be fully seated, and I like to use a small clamp to slowly squeeze the faces flush to each other. I actually don't mind sanding reasonably flat surfaces like these parts. It's kind of satisfying to feel the wood get progressively smooth as I go up through to the higher grades. I started with 80, then 120, 180, and then finished with 220 grit. There is no point subjecting you to all 4 cycles of this process. We can skip to the next stage. I use mineral oil on most of these types of projects. It's easy to apply and it makes the grain pop and glow, and it gives good protection to the wood. I wipe the mineral oil onto all surfaces and let it soak for a couple of hours. Then I come back with a dry cloth to wipe it dry. The final step is to apply a coat of beeswax paste. I make my own with a combination of mineral oil and beeswax. I apply beeswax to the workpiece and the cloth to make sure I cover every nook and most of the crannies. I give the beeswax an hour or so to do its thing, and then I come back with a shiny new dry cloth to buff the wax off. Here we have the finished side table. Don't worry, this is not its forever home. I just put it up there to grab some pics and this very smooth video flyby. I'm very pleased with how well the half-lap dovetails and the stretcher half-laps worked. I hope you like this project. See you next time.